Welcome to Tel Aviv Bitcoin Meetup. So I have proposed today a technical talk about Bitcoin cryptography. I didn't expect too many people to come, so thank you very much for coming. Please interrupt me if there are any questions. So the title I have changed is what Bitcoin private keys say to each other. Okay, so there's like a mystery here. Okay, I have been studying these topics for a few years. Behind you see some sort of graph. So that's a graph which my students have done programmed in Python, and it's based on real-life data from Bitcoin. So these are actual Bitcoin addresses here, and these are the random numbers which appear in the Bitcoin blockchain. So when you sign with Ecdsa, you create a random number, and then there's like a second random number after the elliptic curve multiplication, which you publish as a part of your signature. So these are, the blue things are these second random numbers, which are public, which are on the Bitcoin blockchain. And they are connected to each other. I will explain that later. So for example, like one user is going to use one random. Okay? It's one of the ways in which things could go wrong in Bitcoin, and they went wrong very frequently in the past. Okay. They can also be secret connections in this graph. I will explain this a bit later. Okay, which are not visible to.
Sense?
Sorry?
Is that a graph in the mathematical sense?
Absolutely, it's a graph in a mathematical sense. Okay, so for computer scientists, a graph has no cycles. Okay. But, sorry, a tree has no cycles, okay? So if you have a tree, you have no cycle. But a tree can be very fragile because you can just connect just 2 points and you will create a cycle, okay? Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a cryptologist, but I usually do the bad things. So I break things. So I'm a code breaker cryptanalysis. Okay, I teach a course on cryptanalysis in London. And I teach a course on applied cryptography with payment and Bitcoin and bank cards and things like that. Okay. We also do code-breaking competitions in London. And in 2013, we have won the UK University code-breaking competition. Okay. I also was accused of provoking a cipher crisis by a new scientist many, many years ago. Okay. At LinkedIn, I run a very interesting group, which I'm one of the founding members. It's called Code Breakers. Please join if you're interested in offensive technology, in breaking things. Okay. I also run Bitcoin seminars in central London. For a couple of years, we have been doing this. So you can find information on my blog. So the blog address is blog.bettercrypto.com, and there is a button about seminars. And also you can find some interesting information on the blog. Okay. So Bitcoin is a digital currency. It's based on public key cryptography. A bank account, the equivalent is a pair of public-private keys with the Ecdsa system. So how many people in this room are familiar with Ecdsa cryptography? Okay, like half. Okay. And you spend money by producing digital signatures. This is one of the major, and maybe this is even the most important application, practical application of digital signatures in history. I mean, digital signatures in traditional like banking are not so important. Here, a lot depends on these digital signatures at this moment. You could do something else in Bitcoin, but currently, you can basically lose a lot of money if something goes wrong with this digital signature. This is essentially the topic of today's talk. Okay. In traditional banking, you can undo transactions. In Bitcoin, you cannot. Okay. Does it work? I think the battery is weak. Okay. So a Bitcoin wallet allows you to spend money. So typically, like if your Bitcoin wallet is installed on a mobile phone, your private keys might be stored on a mobile phone. Okay, potentially they could be stolen. It could be dangerous. Okay, so we call a wallet an application which stores your money, but essentially it stores the private keys. Okay, Bitcoin blockchain is a database of all the transactions. Okay, process of Bitcoin mining is a process which depends on all the past transactions. I think I can use this. So the data from all previous transactions are hashed with the miner's public key. Most of the time you have the miner's public key. And then some random numbers. And then you get something which has a lot of zeros. It's like a lottery. And if you win the lottery, you earn Bitcoins. Okay? It's really exactly like a lottery. Okay? So I think most of people know how Bitcoin ledger and blockchain works. Okay, so each block contains a number of transactions, and Bitcoins, which are initially created at the beginning of each block, are distributed to different users. So like here on this slide, like A2 is some public key. Actually, it's typically a hash of a public key. Okay, transactions in Bitcoin have interesting life cycle. Okay, and this already is a place in which Bitcoin is not at all like the initial, like the creator Satoshi Nakamoto has imagined. Satoshi Nakamoto very clearly writes that in Bitcoin everybody will be mining, everybody will be participating in the peer network, okay, and essentially it will be a network of equals. But actually in Bitcoin you have three sorts of very, very different entities. Okay, so you have wallet nodes. Okay, they have private keys and they create transactions. They originate here. So currently there is like maybe 250,000 of really active wallet nodes. Okay, they send transactions to peer nodes which run the peer-to-peer network. And these are different people. Like typically wallet nodes, they are not very active in the peer-to-peer network. You cannot really claim that they are on the peer-to-peer network. Okay, peer nodes, about 5,000, very small number, because Satoshi forgot to create a monetary incentive for anyone to run peer nodes, so it's a problem. Okay, so they will broadcast this, these transactions on the. It takes like 5 to 10 seconds, and they are broadcast globally. And then some of these transactions they reach the miners. Extremely few network nodes, which are the pools, extremely few people. So this is the most important centralization point in Bitcoin. It occurs here at this moment. It has been going on for many years. And then the miner nodes, they burn these things into the Bitcoin ledger. They use a lot of energy. It's really like burning a DVD. It has a certain cost. Okay, and this becomes a public ledger. It is sort of broadcast to everyone through different means. Okay, so we have this interesting cycle. So it's not like what Satoshi what he has imagined. So Bitcoin address, I think everybody knows, but what is very interesting, that the hash of the public key is typically the only thing which is revealed for most transactions. And this is one of the things which is really the security engineering genius of Satoshi Nakamoto. That's really, really brilliant. For example, if the NSA can break the Bitcoin elliptic curve, they actually still cannot steal Bitcoins just because of this. And there is a race condition. Like, if the NSA could break the elliptic curve, they would have to do it in 3 seconds, because the original transaction would already inundate the network. Okay? So even if you don't believe the cryptography is secure, you would have to break it in like 1, 2, 3 seconds. Okay? Otherwise, the legitimate transaction wins.
Which is impossible.
It's a lot more difficult than to break it like in 1 year, for example. Okay? So this is a very neat engineering trick. Very nice. Okay, so Bitcoin transfers are, occur through propagating these transactions through the network. Everybody knows that. Transactions in general have many inputs, many outputs. And inside these transactions, you have scripts. Okay, so the input of transaction has script, the output of a transaction has a script, and actually you can consider that these are like half of the script which are executed when you create Bitcoin transactions, when you execute them. Okay, so I'll skip the details. And inside this script, you have digital signatures. Okay, so you have Ecdsa signature, you have one large integer here, which is typically called R, another large integer here, which is called S. Okay, and typically you have the public key, which is revealed at this moment. Okay, in a majority of cases, it's not known before. Okay, which is not a bug, it's a feature. Okay. So Satoshi, in his paper, at least 3 times, has claimed that Bitcoin was secure, that he believed Bitcoin was secure. In the forums, he has written, oh, I think SHA-256 is very robust, and so on. Okay? So who in this room thinks that Bitcoin is secure? Okay, so who thinks that Bitcoin is not secure? Okay, good. Okay. Bitcoin currently depends a lot on cryptography. Okay, so here is an excerpt from a letter which famous mathematician John Nash has written to the NSA in 1955. It was declassified quite recently. Okay, so in this letter, he explains to the NSA what he thinks is a secure crypto system. And this is very, very early. Even today, cryptography professionals very rarely apply this. So this is like a gold standard, but it's still not widely applied. For example, RSA is not a secure crypto system in John Nash's sense. Okay, why? Because John Nash says a security of crypto system should be such that the level of security or computation, you need to break it, increases exponentially with the length of the key. So it's exponential security. Complexity theory is exp class. Okay? RSA doesn't achieve exponential security. Okay? So this is a very, very high standard which John Nash has postulated. Sorry?
Is it superlinear?
Superlinear for sure. It's superlinear, yes. Mm-hmm. But exponential is grows a lot faster. Okay? Do we know crypto systems which achieve exponential security? We know extremely few. Okay? So one of the families of crypto system that we all know are elliptic curves. Elliptic curves achieve exponential security. Okay? So this is why we use elliptic curves rather than RSA, because the security is a lot better. It is, they do have this exponential growth. Okay? It is very, very important. It makes them scalable. Like, you can build something which will be secure in 10, 20, 50 years. Okay? You can hope to achieve that. Okay? So in computer science, you have these famous problems. Is P equal to NP? If you solve it, you earn $1 million. Okay?
Wait, maybe I can do it.
Yeah, yeah. So if you can earn $1 million. Okay? Nobel Prize is typically like $1 million. Okay? Bitcoin has created the most important and the best paid scientific challenge in human history. Okay? If you can break the Bitcoin cryptography, you earn about $3 billion. Or you might earn about $3 billion. Okay? Okay? It's not really the honest option here. Okay? You could just steal all the Bitcoins. Okay? But from the point of view of science, it is a mathematical problem which has a very, very high price if you can solve it. And this is absolutely unprecedented. Okay, so it's quite interesting. So here is what official Bitcoin wiki says about Bitcoin security. I have checked like a few weeks ago, it's still there. Okay, so it should be still there today. They say Bitcoin has a sound basis in well-understood cryptography. Okay, so who thinks that this statement is actually true? 2, 3 people think it's actually true.
I don't have the tools to determine this.
4, 5. Okay,
The
fine.
problem is well understood. People don't understand it.
Okay. I strongly disagree with this statement. Okay, I think people who say such things are much closer to a conspiracy to defraud people with a financial system in which they are not applying the most basic professional standards. So I think, you know, if you say this, you are good for prison, for jail. Okay? No, I think this is not a statement you should write. Okay? Yeah. So it's not true. Okay? Potentially, it has some signs like past security scandals. It also has some different properties, so I wouldn't claim that this is going necessarily to become a major security scandal. Okay? Potentially, you could have a lawsuit. Okay? Yeah, blame Satoshi, right? Okay, it's an interesting
maybe
question.
This guy's gonna wake up in 10 years and steal all your guys' money. Not even kidding.
Yeah, interesting option.
Japanese, we don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go one slide back?
Yes?
Were they saying that we're as good as credit card and electronic banking?
But this is false. This is absolutely not true. That's a lie. That's a fraud. That's precisely the fraud. It has nothing to do with credit cards or cryptography, which everybody uses. Absolutely nothing to do. Okay, it's a lie. Okay? So Bitcoin is quite interesting because it's an anarchy system. We don't have so many anarchy systems. I mean, Linux is an open source system, but it's not an anarchy system, which is meant to, I don't know, to make bankers lose their jobs and replace them by cryptographers. Okay? Or to allow people from Russia to export money illegally from their country. Okay? Bitcoin can do that. Okay? So Bitcoin is quite a unique system in human history. Okay? With anonymous founder. Okay? I am an author of one paper about dark side. It has dark side in the title. It's a very common thing to say about the dark side. But for many, many years, I have been a vocal critic of open source code in general, in open source systems. Okay? I also have been very critical about quite a few things in Bitcoin. So here is an executive summary. Okay? So I think many things which in Bitcoin are very clearly bugs, there's absolutely no doubt about it, are presented as features. So it's quite interesting. It's funny actually to defend something which is a feature, which is a bug to be a feature, but at the end it's a problem. Okay? So monetary policy, very frequently criticized. Okay? Problematic cryptography, I will go back to this. Decision mechanism like the longest chain rule. Okay? 51% attacks, sudden jumps in monetary policy. I think I was the only person who has actually looked at this question. So, you know, if you want to know more about these things, you can, for example, read this sort of long paper which I have posted on Arxiv. Okay, so I'm not going to expand on this. But, you know, some things in Bitcoin are problematic. Okay, so let's just look at the cryptography. Open source is a very dangerous model. Okay. So here is what one Wall Street lawyer lady writes about this. Okay, one of the biggest risks that we face is the quality of the code that will be used to run our lives. Okay, and it's about criminal behavior potentially. Okay, it's dangerous to use code if you don't know who wrote it. It's really, really dangerous. Okay. One of the solutions which I think exists to this problem is so-called breadths or challenges, or maybe prediction markets also. Okay. But for example, how do you know if cryptography is secure? Or actually, Xavier asked me this question. How do you explain to a banker that your cryptography is secure? Okay.
Insurance.
Insurance doesn't really exist. So initially it's scientific challenges, like if you can break it, you can get a prize. Okay, these things do exist. Okay, so I always like this idea, and I made cash bets since 2001. Okay, so elliptic curve cryptography you have all these bets. Like, for example, if you can break this elliptic curve, you earn $100,000. The total for this, it's like $1 million. Yes?
Maybe one could, this is going to sound pretty crazy, but
yeah.
Perhaps giving the structure of the cryptology of Bitcoin right now, saying it has a few flaws, it's not perfect, can one instill within the system the idea, just like you're implying here, that if you break a certain code, you make a certain sum of money, yet the system itself encourages
this would
it's like investing.
This would be really brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes. Yes, so the best thing to do in Bitcoin community would be precisely to allow people to, like, you know, create Bitcoins if then they can break some crypto challenges, for example. This would be the best thing.
Investment market.
Yeah.
Actually, Bitcoin investors could actually...
Thank you, go learn code.
Yeah, that's really, really nice idea.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Great. The problem here is that the elliptic curve of Bitcoin is not included in these challenges. It's a dodgy form of cryptography. It's not the one which is approved officially by professionals.
Where does the money come from?
From a Canadian company which is, you know, well funded and in very good terms with the NSA. Yeah. Very good terms. Okay. Yes. So yes, you can explain to a banker that your cryptography is secure. Okay. There is a way. Okay. So there is also the denial. Okay. So Certicom, this Canadian company, is actually the same which have created this Bitcoin elliptic curve in the first place. And here is what the head cryptologist at this company says about Bitcoin elliptic curve. You should never use it. Nobody should ever use it. Okay? So it's like we're using Windows XP, something which is not officially supported by the very people who have produced it. Okay? Okay. If you are interested in particulars, this curve has very special properties. It uses only small integers. Okay? So there is one coefficient which is actually 0, and the other is equal to 7, like b is equal to 7 for typical elliptic curves. You would have b, which is a large integer. Okay? In cryptography, every year, it's like 50 papers published breaking things because they use small integers. Okay? So it's not like a theoretical threat. Okay? There's lots of attacks. If you want to know more technical details, this elliptic curve has tremendous shortcuts. They are like shortcuts in space. Okay, so it's like from here to planet Mars, I will travel in 1 second. Okay, so typically on an elliptic curve, when you take a point on an elliptic curve, which is typically two numbers, x and y, and you multiply it by a scalar, which is a large integer, this is an expensive operation. Like for a general elliptic curve on 256 bits, this takes like 1,000 microseconds on a normal CPU. Okay, for Bitcoin elliptic curve, because it's very highly optimized, it takes still like 50 microseconds. Okay, however, it happens that there exists some special multiples for this Bitcoin elliptic curve, for which this expensive operation can be implemented a lot cheaper by a simple multiplication of the x coordinate by another magical number. Okay, so and this is a lot cheaper. This is like costs like 0.005 microsecond for the Bitcoin elliptic curve. So it's like a shortcut in space. Okay, we essentially travel at a very high speed. Okay, so this is not an ordinary elliptic curve. Okay. The good news is there are extremely few such points. At this moment, this elliptic curve remains officially not broken. Okay, but in cryptography, the golden rule is not to use something which is like this, which has special properties. Special, it means suspicious in general, and means broken in the future, in many, many cases. Okay, so I don't think you will find one single honest cryptographer who would advise anyone to ever use this elliptic curve. They will tell you, no, stay far from this elliptic curve. Okay. So here is some statistic, like, most people on our planet use this elliptic curve, which is the R1. Bitcoin uses K1. Okay? And everybody uses this curve. For example, in SSL connections, about 98% of people who use elliptic curves, they use this elliptic curve. So like the majority. Okay? This curve is supported in OpenSSL, but as far as I know, is never used. And many clones of OpenSSL, they just don't even implement it. Okay? So everybody, I don't know, you ask the German government, they approved this curve until year 2015. Okay? Bankcards, Microsoft, Kerberos, everyone. NIST, the NSA, they use this elliptic curve. Okay? Bitcoin uses something very bizarre. Okay?
Why is that?
I don't know. Okay? So a friend of mine, Jean-Jacques Kiscater, has been organizing this very nice conference. It was run for the second year this year. It's called Catacrypt, about catastrophic events in cryptography. It's a conference in which you will meet a lot of senior cryptologists, and they basically are working on solutions for cryptography failing. So it's about cryptography failing. What if and how do you solve the problem, for your systems to be still operational and not broken, and your money not being stolen, etc. Okay, Bitcoin is very far from being anything like that. Okay, so I invite people at this conference. It's going to happen every year. Something very interesting happens in the last 2 months. In the last 2 months, the NSA, they have officially announced that the cryptography that everybody uses, this is not the Bitcoin cryptography, which is the dodgy one. It's the cryptography which like everybody uses. This one, they announced it's not good anymore. They say it's not a long-term solution anymore. Okay? So the NSA, if you want to learn more, I put some links on my blog, so you can find links on my blog directly on the NSA website. They essentially say that very soon NSA are going to publish new cryptography standards, and the current ones are not good. For like all, maybe nobody knows exactly how to interpret this, but it seems like almost all existing cryptography standards. And yet the Bitcoin elliptic curve is very far from these standards. The elliptic curve cryptography is very remote from even those that the NSA do not approve anymore.
So why didn't Bitcoin broke by now?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, why it's not broken yet. But the same question applies to Linux system, why Linux systems are so secure in practice, though they are not secure in theory. Okay? For the last 20 years, you could walk around with a Linux laptop, and at every moment you would connect to Wi-Fi network, somebody could break in very easily. Very, very easily. These systems have never, ever been secure. Yes?
Yeah. You were speaking before about the anarchic features of the Bitcoins. Now, when I think of the NSA is moving towards crypto code similar to the one Bitcoin is using now, and maybe later on also private corporations are going to go down.
So you think the NSA are going to switch to Bitcoin cryptography?
Not the exact one, but you were saying they're like
protocol, not the
two like paradigms which use specific elliptical. I'm sorry, I didn't get the
So if this happens, you should be scared.
So what I'm saying is the following, exactly. But excuse me, I don't want to get into the technicalities because obviously I want to understand it. But you put like two diagrams and you say, okay, these people use this specific one on the right, and the others use the one on the left. Now, would you agree with me that if, for example, the NSA moves to the one on the left, it has, maybe I sound like bad here, but does it have maybe a closer proximity to the Bitcoin, right? A paradigm going on. So what prevents the NSA from just taking all our money?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. It seems to me that these new cryptography standards are coming out soon.
Where is the anarchy if a governmental agency can actually read the cryptography of this? The government has computers, it might as well just have guns. It's the same shtick.
No, because, guns do not allow, you to take other people's money remotely.
They do.
Of
course they do. It's called the Federal Reserve.
Okay, good. Yes. So this is quite interesting. The current cryptography that everybody uses, and it's not Bitcoin cryptography, is currently under the question. All of it or most of it. We don't know exactly. It's not clear.
They can tax your money without you knowing it.
I don't think so. I don't think so. However, remember that in Bitcoin, Satoshi hashes the key, the public key, which is a tremendous protection even against the NSA. Okay, so there is some interesting security in Bitcoin, even against this. Okay. So by the way, I have created bets about this question. The current bet has expired, but I promise to create new one. So I have created a bet that Bitcoin cryptography will be broken in 2015, and I have lost this bet. Okay, I promise to create additional bets very soon. Okay, it's possible to bet with Bitcoins anonymously, by the way. It's hosted by BetMoose in Canada. Yes.
The price of the bet is in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If you win the bet, how do we collect?
It's an interesting question. Thank you. So now about some technical incidents in Bitcoin. Okay, so there have been a lot of bad things going on in Bitcoin. A lot of it, people have obtained distorted information about this, from Bitcoin press and media, and also from researchers. I think there have been a lot of distorted information about what was really going on in Bitcoin network. Okay, so let's look at some events which I have been following myself for a couple of years. Okay, for example, bad randoms. Okay, so bad randoms are a very old vulnerability in all security systems. Okay, like before the World War II, German operators would initialize Enigma machine with AAA. And then they were forbidden from doing that. So they would do XYZ. Okay, and then they would do ASD. And then they would use the diagonal. So each time they were forbidden from doing something, they have obeyed. And they have done another thing which is equally silly. Okay? And this is not history. That's present time. Okay? These mistakes are done every day by people who choose their passwords and at a massive scale. Okay? So they live forever. Okay? So this is still happening. Okay? Currently we know like 91% of people use one of the top 1,000 passwords. Okay? It's a huge percentage. Most people use insecure passwords. Okay? So in Bitcoin you have brain wallets. So brain wallets could be very useful for Syrian refugees. Okay?
They have an iPhone.
Yeah, during the Holocaust, many people have died because they have gold on them. They have been killed because they have gold.
No, they were killed because they were Jews.
No.
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe you're Polish, so you don't want to admit it, but
Yeah.
I'm a Polish too.
Yeah.
I'm just a Polish Jew.
Yeah, but you
They kill Jews with gold and without gold.
yeah, but you see, for refugees who want to escape, who are dealing with criminal organizations helping them to get out, they want to have the money, get it out of the
Did you
country.
just claim the Holocaust happened based on a financial structure between the Jews and the non-Jews living in specific geographical states? Because that's quite insane. I hope you know Bitcoin better than history.
No, I think this is Bitcoin in history. I think Bitcoin is disruptive technology for refugees. It's the only way to take money out of your country safely without a threat of being, robbed and even identified in a crowd as a wealthy person.
Right, so Jewish babies were wealthy.
Hey, buddy, you came here to listen to this guy, not to you.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Okay, you can step outside.
Actually, everybody wants to just also step outside.
I know. And I choose not
So in my family, it's a history. Members of my family have escaped from Poland with gold and jewels and other things.
And were they Jewish?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
So it's a disruptive technology for refugees. Quite interesting. I mean, maybe it's silly to use brain wallets, but some people really want to do it. Okay. Yeah. We have recovered private keys for a large number of brain wallets. Okay. We started with our students some time ago. And then I found more, and my PhD student found more. There was a presentation by Ryan Castellucci at DEF CON quite recently. We have been working with Ryan Castellucci. We have improved Ryan's code to run faster. And there is a lot of silly vulnerabilities there, which is like a honeypot. But there is quite a few of interesting things which we have found, which you can find. Okay, so some interesting passwords you can find there. For example, this one. This is the way the world ends. Okay, this one the refugees might like. Okay, or live as if you were to die tomorrow. Okay, so this is another thing that the refugees might like. Okay, so some people have put their money, trusted their money to this sort of password, which can be guessed by other people. Okay, a lot of this money have been stolen very, very quickly by a number of active thieves. Okay, so here are some timings. So what was presented at the DEF CON conference was like 100,000 guesses per second. So our implementation is like 400,000, and recent improvements is like 600,000. Okay, so there's a number of improvements which we have made to this code, which are different implementation of the elliptic curve, and also larger window size and things like that. Okay, larger memory. So I have also done research on smart cards for many years in my life. For example, I have published some papers on my classic chip. About 2 billion of these chips have been sold, and they are used like all over the place. Probably a lot are used in Israel. Okay, so in MyFairClassic we also have bad random vulnerabilities. Okay, you can find links on my blog. Basically, if you want to extract keys, I provide a easy setup for anyone to extract keys at home.
So you guess which addresses use brain wallets, and then guess.
No, it has nothing to do. It's just a historical example of bad randoms. Okay, but what is interesting in this research we have done about the smart cards is that a lot of smart cards, they differ a lot on the quality of their random. Some smart cards are very random. Some smart cards have very poor randomness. This is, for example, a Malaysia payment card.
Why use
okay?
bad randomness?
So bad randomness is a question which you have to study in detail if you really want to do a good attack. Okay, because there is a lot of things which happen here. Okay, so I can skip this. In Bitcoin, we also had a similar situation. Okay, in Bitcoin, the bad randomness have been happening by outbreaks, like an epidemics. Okay, so bad randoms have been known since January 2013. Okay, so bad randoms occur in Ecdsa signatures when basically you take some random number A, you multiply it by the point on the curve P, and this is the random which is published in the blockchain. Okay, so if you have these A's which are identical, these things will be identical. In my paper, you will also find related attacks in which these things are not identical, which are related. Okay, so there are some advanced attacks. Okay, so this is a slide about Ecdsa signatures, how it works. I think people who have implemented Ecdsa signatures know how it works. So you make this computation, and your signature is a pair of R and S. This is what you publish as your signature for your Bitcoin transaction. Okay, so I think no one in the open literature, it is explained what is possible to do with these attacks. I think I'm the only person who explained what is possible and what isn't. Okay, so for example, if two users use the same random A, it's quite interesting, because it's not like that everyone can steal Bitcoins. The only thing which you can do is that each person can steal the other guy's Bitcoins. That's the only thing you can do. Okay? So in our graph model, it creates a connection of this sort. This user has used this random, this user has used this random.
And the connection between them is what?
And then you have a connection. Okay? You have a path from this user to this user in the graph. Okay, you can have also longer paths in this graph. Okay, this is what we have discovered. So I have produced an online database of this event. You can find it here if you press this button. So there is an online database of all these events since the beginning of Bitcoin. It's a large database. So currently, what has happened when things went badly in Bitcoin, it was when the same random was used twice by the same user. And then anybody can steal the Bitcoins. And the formula to compute the private key is actually given here. Okay? So that's the easy case. Okay? You know, there have been a number of outbreaks. The Android bug has been fixed. Okay? Everybody thought it was solved. Some Bitcoins have been stolen. For example, 59 Bitcoins went to one account. To this day, they are not spent. The thief is afraid of using these Bitcoins. Okay? And here is a visualization. Okay? There was one outbreak in May 2012. I don't know what bug it was. Android bug was in like May 2013, lasted for longer, has been fixed. There was another major outbreak in May 2014.
So
okay.
May is a bad month for Bitcoin.
Yeah, interestingly.
What do you show here? What,
okay. So actually, what you can read from this graph is that when you have many points in this direction, it means that at a certain moment in time, different private keys have had the same problem, the same vulnerability. So you get like a line. It means that at the same moment, many people are using the same software. It kind of shows on the graph. Okay? If you had a vertical, if you had like a horizontal line here, like here, it means that there's some idiot out there, okay, who has produced bad randoms many times. It's like the same address, the same person, probably on the same machine. So you can kind of read some things on this graph. Okay? There have been more outbreaks. In December 2014, there was another outbreak of these events. And here, about $200,000 were stolen by a so-called ethical thief who has given many interviews to the press. Okay? He has returned the money to blockchain.info. Interestingly. Okay? The ethical thief has recommended that to fix this problem, you should use HD wallets. I found that really, really bizarre. Okay? The thing is that at the same time, I have published a paper showing that HD wallets are extremely dangerous. Okay? So it's quite interesting that the thief is recommending something like this, but it's not a great thing. I will explain in a minute why. Okay?
It's disinformation.
It's a fragile security standard. Yes?
Maybe it's disinformation. He's trying to make it easier for him.
Interesting. Okay? You should not trust security advice which comes from a thief, even if it's an ethical thief. Okay? So here, this appears in this paper. You can find it on the internet. So let me explain a little bit how it works. So for example, this random was used 4 times by different users. So we have seen until now that this is low risk. There is no attack as of yet if you use the same random used by different users. It's the only thing that each of these guys can steal other guys' Bitcoins. So there are only 4 people affected. Okay? So can we do something more? That's the question. Okay? And actually you can do a lot more. Well, I can skip this one. So you can look at our paper, which is here. It's a draft at this moment. Okay? The full version has not been published. So I claim that under certain conditions, all Bitcoins in cold storage can be stolen. Okay? And potentially millions of accounts are affected. Potentially up to 100% of all Bitcoins in volume are affected by this vulnerability. I don't know because I don't know how exactly people who have large amounts in Bitcoin store them. And we don't know.
What
yes.
are the conditions?
Okay? They are very technical. It's a research paper. I don't claim that this is necessarily happening. Okay? But it could happen.
Big picture, what are the
it could happen. Okay? So let me explain a little bit. So the paper is actually on the internet. You can read it if you want. So these are combination attacks. Combination attacks means 2 things have to happen simultaneously. for this to work. Okay? So first of all, some people should use HD wallets. And secondly, poor random number generators could be used. And if these things happen simultaneously, then actually it's like all bitcoins in some domain would be stolen. All the accounts would be broken. Okay, so let me explain how it works. So in our graph kind of formalization, we connect things together. Like in our graph, we connect some user with another user through a path on the graph because they have used the same random. And that's the real thing. That's a graph which comes from the real life Bitcoin data. Okay? We have created this visualization. So you have larger connections. So we have a very nice theorem which says that if you have a cycle in this graph, all Bitcoins in all accounts which are on this connected component, so also those which are not on the cycle, will be stolen. So that's one of the results. Okay? So here it has happened. Okay? There is a cycle in the graph. Okay? Now, the point about HD wallets is that HD wallets, they also create things like that. Actually, an HD wallet can also be viewed as a tree, which has no cycle initially. Okay, by definition. But the HD wallet basically creates this situation in which a lot of keys are connected together. I'm going to explain the details. But they accept that you only know about these connections if you have the master public key in HD wallets, or the so-called audit key. If you don't, but some people have these keys, okay? If you see these additional connections, which other people don't see. Most people just don't see them, okay? So you have these things which are happening in the Bitcoin, and some people will see more connections appear, okay? And this is how things can go badly wrong. Okay.
So this is basically the same problem as the guy, the German guy choosing X, Y, and Z, and then ASDs, bad randoms is the only problem.
So it's not the only problem, but it's almost the only problem. Okay. So this does happen in Bitcoin. This is based on real life data from Bitcoin. There are lots of cycles currently in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin graph. Okay. It's not like a very large number, but there is a few. Okay, so this is happening. But that's the visible part of the iceberg. If you use HD wallet, you create these invisible connections between keys. Okay, and if you have, I'm not going to explain the details, but if you have this audit key in the HD wallet system, which, for example, could be installed on a mobile phone, it's not so well protected. Okay, like Trezor, they have this Trezor Lite app. So on your mobile phone, you will have the master, audit key. Then actually you see these additional connections, which could close the cycle. And you could basically compromise all the Bitcoins on the whole connected component of the graph.
Can you explain again what the nodes represent as the edges?
So on this graph, the yellow nodes are the users. And these are the random numbers they have used. Or the visible part of it, which is the R part. Okay? And so if this user has used this random in the blockchain, they will be connected. Okay? And there exist additional connections between users which are invisible, which just come from the fact that they use the same HD wallet system. Which are, they can have several levels. Okay? So then if you have cycles in this graph, all the keys will be compromised, not only on the cycle, but on the whole connected component. So that's the basic result.
So connections are only between yellow and blue?
No, not only, because HD wallets, they create additional connections between these yellow points.
So,
okay,
so
which are like trees.
The addresses derived from the HD wallet?
Yes. And these HD wallets, they actually create trees, which in principle have no cycle. But a tree is a very fragile thing, because it's sufficient to create just one additional connection to create a cycle.
And so each connection like this is the same random number wrongly being used twice.
So yes, so if in addition some randoms have been used twice, but there are also attacks with related randoms. You can look inside the paper. So there are also attacks in which the same randoms are not used twice, but the randoms are similar. For example, they are shifted by 8 bits.
And randoms are used twice because of software bugs?
Yeah. Yeah, essentially, the inability of people to program good random number generators is a very, you know, apparent thing. You see it fail every day.
So
Okay.
what is the mechanism for stealing the private keys that you mentioned? You said that
Well, basically, in the paper, my paper, you find formulas. You got to compute them. The mechanism to stealing is mathematics. You just compute them after these events happen. The third thing which happens is HD wallets. With HD wallets, you are essentially going to, with brain wallets, you also create some entry points in this graph. Like if on this graph somebody has used a brain wallet, it's going to compromise all the keys on this whole connected component. That's also easy to see. So that's another entry point by which, like, by compromising one key, you could compromise some other. Okay, so there are other combination attacks also with brain wallets. So these vulnerabilities, they can be combined together, and they combine together very well. Okay, and there is a number, there is even, in the paper we find some other more advanced attacks. They are a bit funny, like 2 different security domains, and you can compromise both, actually, even if they don't have a common setup. If you want to know why, look at the paper. It could happen. Okay?
So anonymity schemes like CoinJoin actually compromise security very much?
No, I wouldn't say that. No. It has nothing to do with CoinJoin. It has little to do with CoinJoin.
I mean, if Bitcoins move around constantly in an effort to...
Yeah, if there is a lot of connections between users, yeah, it would make these graphs potentially better connected. So indeed, if Bitcoin was a lot better in terms of anonymity, it would make this problem necessarily worse. Yes, absolutely, I would agree, yes. Yes.
no, it gives you more opportunities to use bad randoms, but if you're not using bad randoms at all, then it's not a problem.
But it would change the nature of the graph. Okay, it would be more connected.
So what you're saying, if I find one private key in all this graph,
Yes.
I can recover.
They are all
another
compromised.
private
All the keys which are connected on the graph are compromised. So,
but what do you need to do to compromise it? There is a simple algorithm, or you need to do a lot of computation?
so again, it's very simple computation. Some examples of formulas are given in the paper. Okay, so again, it's just pure mathematics. You just, you know, essentially the solving of system of equations mod p, which is solvable basically. So essentially, it's a system of linear equations mod p. Okay. A little bit about countermeasures against the attacks. So secure storage. So that's a bad thing to do, is to store private keys on the mobile phone. What you need is a smart card. Okay. So some exist. So this was the initial open source project. A better version is Ledger Wallet, done in France by very good crypto developers, applying very good standards. So I'll tell you a few works. So essentially, the main functionality of these things is to keep your private key private. Okay? And they also produce digital signatures on the chip. Okay? Otherwise, it wouldn't be kept private. Okay? You don't export ever. You just export the public key.
Don't they use HD scheme?
They do, okay. But you can use HD schemes securely if you use deterministic signatures in addition. So you could kind of have good security with some assurance, I would say. So it's not always like if you use deterministic signatures with RFC 6979. Then actually you are sure that this combination attacks cannot happen. Okay, so they do use HD wallets, but you know it's not necessarily a problem here. Okay, so this is a very advanced product. Okay, this is a chip which is used in bank cards, very nice. So at least tens of millions of euros have already been spent on security evaluation of this chip. Okay, so it has a crypto coprocessor. It has dedicated memory for cryptography, which is 2K. Okay, it has USB connection. It has 6K of RAM. It is a very good chip. It also has some very interesting key management functionalities, which I'm going to skip. So this is a very good chip. Okay, probably the best Bitcoin wallet you can find on our planet. Okay, Trezor has some additional feature, which is very nice, that you know what you sign. You know to whom you send the money, which the smart card doesn't have. So Trezor is superior on this aspect. However, Trezor is by far not as advanced as the French product because, you know, the French industry, they have a lot of experience with doing very highly secure systems, which are certified.
This is a ledger wallet?
Yeah, the ledger wallet. So I wouldn't think, I wouldn't guarantee that this system is secure at all. I think it's very insecure for hackers, but it has one very nice feature. Okay? For example, for side channel attacks, I don't think that this system is protected very well against side channel attacks. Okay? So it's not the best system, but again, it does something amazing. You can know what you sign. Okay? So it's quite interesting because in Trezor system, they actually use HD wallets, and they have this very nice thing, which is the Trezor Light App. So Trezor Light App, it's like a public version of your wallet. So you have your device, you can spend Bitcoins, but if you have just your mobile phone with Trezor Light App, you can follow the money. It's like read-only access to your Bitcoin, all your Bitcoin accounts. This is essentially what it does, read-only access. But this read-only access is achieved through this HD wallet magic, which is quite complex. I mean, I have like 200 slides about how it works. If you're interested, find on my blog. But this magic essentially makes that there exist these secret connections between the private keys, which most people don't see. Yet, if you have access to this app, like a hacker who exploits Android system, which is the most common target nowadays for hackers, and it's very widely exploited. Okay. Well, they could potentially steal this so-called master public key in HD wallet systems. Master public key. So this master public key, in theory, it does not give you access to the funds, but actually in practice it could, due to all these attacks. So if they are but random events, if it's connected to some brain wallets, etc., this is potentially going to collapse. Okay, so so this is a fragile system potentially. Okay, it's potentially very secure, and potentially could collapse just due to one incident. One incident makes a lot of keys being compromised. Okay, so here, by the way, how this magic works, I'm going to skip, but I have some slides about this if you're interested. I have made quite a few pictures how it works. By the way, there have been a paper at Financial Cryptography last year which fixes this. So there is already a cryptographic method for doing this better. So the current Bitcoin standard is not optimal. You can do something which is a lot more robust. Okay, but this is what everybody uses in Bitcoin nowadays. Okay, so if you're interested, you can find.
On top of Bitcoin.
Sorry?
This is an application on top of.
It's a Bitcoin standard. It's a Bitcoin standard, very widely used. Okay. Another system which uses HD wallets is Kite, and it's quite hilarious, I found, because they have also this extended public key, XPub key, and they send it by email. So this is pretty dangerous. Okay. It depends at what level you send it. Maybe it's not so dangerous if it's at the low level. It's just for one terminal or for one card, but you know it's potentially problematic. Okay. People think that HD wallets are secure. They could be very disappointed, okay, because it's a very, very fragile security standard, which can essentially collapse due to some incident at operation in a remote corner of your system, and it compromises everything. Okay, so it's a bit problematic to send this by email, but this is what they do. Okay, so well, is it secure? There are some fixes. Is this deterministic signature generation, which is a security standard written by Thomas Pornin. Okay. It's very complex, by the way. Okay. Most people apply it. In Bitcoin Core, it was very bizarre because it was sitting there for 18 months. It was not applied to Bitcoin Core code for 18 months. Okay. So it was applied only very, very recently. Okay. So. Yeah, this is one of potential fixes. If you apply it, potentially you can have a HD wallet system which is like probably secure. But again, mathematicians can prove security in a paradoxical sense. Basically, it can be very insecure in practice. Many probably secure systems are very fragile. Just one thing which goes wrong makes everything collapse. So probability security is not good security engineering. We have seen today an example of good security engineering is the fact that Satoshi hashes the public key. That's really, really brilliant. Okay, so security engineering is you need to work a lot harder than just having something which is secure. Okay, you have to consider that your systems are going to fail. Necessarily, they will fail, and you need to work on workarounds for this. Okay, thank you very much. That's everything I wanted to say. Thank you for having me.
I don't understand at all, but essentially you raised a lot of concerns about the security of Bitcoin.
Yes.
And its susceptibility to hackers cracking. How does Bitcoin compare to bank account security or the general financial? Because
So I believe that the Bitcoin community should have strictly higher security standards than like in banking. Why? Because if there is something wrong with your bank account, you complain to the bank and they will fix it. In Bitcoin, it's gone. Your money is gone. Okay?
to analyze probabilities and
Yes,
risks
yes.
and everything like that in the Bitcoin network. I'm not sure if any of these aspects. Bitcoin does have a certain level of security. I'm not sure if any of those aspects are available in the banking or the financial industry. Much easier, from what you described, it's much easier for me to log into my bank account, for me to transfer Bitcoin.
Well, these things have a different nature, so it's very hard to compare them. But it's a fact that banks spend billions on security. And people spend billions on security in our society. Yeah, so it doesn't make it necessarily more secure, but it's problematic to ask and to think that Bitcoin could be very secure if people are not trying to make it secure. There is no effort, no incentive to make it secure.
There's no awareness of the problem.
And even the awareness is quite poor. Like people with Satoshi, trust Satoshi, right?
No, but I'm saying you have some sort of opinion on, so you have an opinion on Bitcoin vulnerability.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of research on the vulnerabilities in the banking industry?
Yeah, quite. There's quite a lot of papers, and some people at my university,
would you say that the banking environment is less secure, more secure than Bitcoin? Because essentially that's where that's what Bitcoin's claim is that it's
I wouldn't compare the two because I think it's very hard to compare, because it's a very different system. So I rather tend to think that Bitcoin community has to develop much better security standards than anyone has ever developed. Precisely because it's an anarchy and there is no one who's going to help you out if it goes wrong. So I think the Bitcoin community should develop very high security standards.
It's evolution.
It will happen through evolution, but that's the only way I think for Bitcoin to really succeed. Is that we need to be better than banks.
It needs to have many more failures than it had by now.
Maybe. Yeah.
Why do you say that anonymous developer is a problem if the code is open source? Anyone can scan the code and look for...
You see, open source is a sort of false security principle. The real security principle, as kind of enacted by Salzer and Schroeder in the 70s, the classical paper. Okay, it's open design, but not open source. There's a huge difference between open design and open source. Okay, open design, you publish your reasons why you designed this, you discuss in the academia, you publish papers, that's open design. SHA-256 is open source, but it's not open design. It was designed by the NSA. Okay, the Bitcoin elliptic curve is even worse because it's a sort of bizarre security standards which have been developed initially, officially only for efficiency. But people are extremely suspicious about it.
But
yes.
How is it related to the anonymity of the developer? I mean,
there is a problem of liability. If you know the developer, like Linux, you know the developers. Okay. If you have an anonymous developer, that's a really bizarre situation. Okay, because there is no even moral or legal liability. Even from the moral point of view, there is no one to blame, and it's very difficult to trust anonymous developers. Okay, it could be that the NSA or Russia, they have written this code, with specific objectives. Okay.
Open source on its own is not enough, but
it's not enough.
Absence of open source is much worse.
Yeah, absence of open source, of course, is maybe a problem. But I'm a big critic of open source in general. So I don't think that open source was ever secure, and of course it can be improved. In one sense, Bitcoin fixes the open source problem because it has created a self-funded community, which is better than a community which is funded, I don't know, by Russian intelligence services. Okay, because in absence of funding, the funding comes from there. Okay, so Bitcoin already somewhat fixes this problem. Okay, but it's a question of culture, awareness, and the fact that people would discuss security vulnerability, and it would be alive.
Right, but the first step to knowing whether your software and your hardware are doing what you think they're doing is knowing what they're doing. You need to be able to
so according to experts, there is
verify the design.
So there is a paper by Ross Anderson and Rescola. So according to them, they are experts. Open source and closed source models are equivalent. They do not claim that any of them is more secure. Opening the source helps both the attackers and the defenders, unhappily. It's not that open source is more secure. I don't believe it.
So
it's a lot better from business perspective, for sure. It leads to very high quality code, which lives forever. It has independent life. It has a lot of very nice features. The quality is tremendous, and so on. So open source is very nice. It's usually done for business reasons, not for security reasons. If you are a banker, you want to have several suppliers, so you want your system to be more or less open source, so you can, make your suppliers compete against each other. So I think open source is a very good model, but I think in security it has been a tremendous failure. It has failed very badly with all the recent security standards. And open source with an anonymous founder, that's the really very bizarre one, which we only essentially have in Bitcoin. We also have had this in TrueCrypt, for example, but it's quite exceptional. Open source with a unknown people who are there. Okay, so it's the special version. yes, you wanted to say something.
Do you claim that the advantage of closed source versus open source is security by obscurity?
No, it's not. It's not. Security by obscurity is a method. It is tremendously effective. My classic card, which I've published 2 papers about how to hack it, and you can actually hack it at home with explanations found on my blog, has been not broken for 15 years just because of obscurity. So from the business perspective, has been very effective security by obscurity. Okay. Later, people have been able to do bus rides for free or things like that. Okay. So in one sense, it works. The protection by closing your source is just an additional protection which you can add to any system. If your system is very secure, it has very high standards, so it could be open source, you can still make it closed source, and your attackers are going to need 3 extra months. Okay? 3 extra months is not a lot in research, but it's a lot in business, and it's worth a lot of money. Okay? So it's just an extra security. So I claim that the most secure system on this planet will be more secure if it's closed source or partly closed source. So you create this additional barrier for penetration. Yes.
Do you have a service, or is your data open sourced, or can I check my wallet?
We have these problems with ethics. I mean, for years I have been sitting on bitcoins. Okay, I remember some time ago I had like $100,000 which I could just steal. Okay, and what should I do about it? I have not published this data. I just was sitting on it. At this moment we are still sitting on this data, and we are not sure how to ethically disclose these things.
So I cannot check if my paper wallet is in there or not?
No, it's not so easy. If your brain wallet, yeah. So we have not published this full data at the moment. I have published this database of batch randoms, yes. So you should expect updates. But for the brain wallets, it's problematic. So on the ethical side, even though I teach a class at my university about research ethics, okay, this is the problem that I cannot solve. I don't know what to do, okay, with these things. So I have not, in this space for years, I have not published everything we have found. And it's still the case today because of this uncertainty, like what you should do, because you cannot just, like, normally you hacked Microsoft, you would warn them, tell them, okay, we have hacked you, in 9 months, our paper is public, okay, that's it. But here we have anonymous people who are there, who have some bitcoins, and what do you do? Even by publishing some slight information about this, you increase the chances that these bitcoins will be stolen. And actually, there have been a lot of racing here by different thieves which have been going on here. Okay, so there have been a lot of people who have created their brain wallets, and their bitcoins have been stolen instantly because somebody already was running a ready program, kind of, live system, which cracks their password instantly and steals their bitcoins instantly. Okay?
But except for user mistakes, do you forecast a systematic failure?
Yes, it's a systematic failure, yes. Like all these German Enigma operators' mistakes, they are with us, and they will be repeated tomorrow by everyone, and,
So but this is a user mistake. It's
not yeah, but you cannot eliminate it.
No, you don't use human-generated entropy, ever.
Yeah, so machine-generated passwords are a lot better, for sure, but very few people use it. Machine-generated password is a good thing, okay?
But the cryptography behind Bitcoin is good.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No, the elliptic curve, it's a huge incertitude. It's also highly demoralizing to see people in Bitcoin community, not trying to fix this problem. I mean, the decent thing to do would be to allow people who are paranoid to use a different elliptic curves, but they don't allow. It would take 1 second to fix. You just need to essentially flip 3 bits in the source code, and you could allow some people to use another elliptic curve, but other people could use this elliptic curve if they don't care, So it would be very easy to do something about it. So there is a problem of Bitcoin governance as well, because people who do not trust the Bitcoin cryptography should be allowed to do something else, and currently they are not allowed.
If you want.
Okay? No, you cannot fork Bitcoin. I mean,
software forks.
Blockchains that use hash algorithms. Yeah, exactly. So some altcoins like Stellar, they have already switched a long time ago, to different elliptic curves. Yes, for sure. Few of them have done. Okay, but most people blindly copy the Bitcoin source code, and so it's. I call them stupid coins. Most altcoins are stupid because they do a lot less effort than Bitcoin itself. I mean, Bitcoin community still has done tremendous amounts of effort to keep it secure, to fix the bugs, etc. It's not enough. But compared to any altcoin, they still have done a lot more than anyone else. Okay, so the smaller coins have even less chance of being secure unhappily.
I think what would be a good step is if there were, let's say, a soft fork that let you use something like Lamport signatures in Bitcoin.
Yeah, Lamport signatures are a huge innovation, initially proposed by Vitalik. Okay, so Vitalik Buterin was the first to remark this publicly in a paper in 2013. And yes, this would be a very nice post-quantum solution, so it would even address this NSA problem of not trusting the current cryptography. Okay, so this would be a tremendous thing. Yeah, this would be great. This would make Bitcoin a lot more robust and even able to resist quantum attacks. Okay, so this would be great, yeah. Yeah, Lamport signatures.
What do you think about the multi-hash strategy? Like, for example, IPFS, they saying we don't know which hash will be broken in the future, so we allocate few bits to indicate.
Yeah, to use a different hash function.
Yeah, from the start, from the get-go.
It's not such a big problem.
It doesn't require forks, soft forks.
Yeah, it's not such a big problem. I think you know, to allow different hash function would be problematic because all the people who have invested tens and tens of billions of dollars into Bitcoin mining would feel very insecure suddenly. So changing the hash function, I think, is highly problematic. Okay. Okay, we have run a lot, you know, over the time. So if there are more questions, please connect to the Code Breakers group. Please, you know, you can connect to me at LinkedIn if you have any questions. So you can find contact with me just by trying to connect on LinkedIn, for example. Yes.
Community, because the technological stuff will always be breakable. And if we would like to create a robust community, I think we can achieve it, but with a good and healthy connection between the people.
I think we can achieve. I think we can do better than banks and everybody else. Okay, we're not that far actually. There are just few bugs and few things. I seem optimistic. So I think the Bitcoin community should aim at this. Should aim at very, very high security standards. Being very paranoid, like cryptographers are excessively paranoid, but it's a good game and good place to be.
I meant that people should provide the security to one each other, some kind of insurance.
Yes, yes, why not? Insurance schemes would be a great idea, and I'm sure they are going to emerge, you know, yeah.
Mutual insurance.
Mutual insurance, absolutely, absolutely brilliant idea, yes. Mutual distributed systems of people being self-insured by participating in a peer-to-peer insurance scheme. That's a great idea, yes, yes. This is happening, for sure. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much for the lecture. Thanks for listening. Thank you to Google Campus Tel Aviv for hosting us here. I'll just finish with one small announcement. As some of you may have heard, we're going to have our annual conference next month in about 4 weeks, November 25. It's going to be the biggest Bitcoin event in Israel for this year, so I hope you can all be there. So save the date, take a day off from work, it will be the whole day. So we will post more details about the conference later on, but just so you know, it's free attendance, and there's free food, and we'll have a whole day of lectures and a booth and whatever. And we hope to have some special guests here, but we need to see about the exact list for that. So yes, so like I said, I hope you will all come there, and if you want to do something extra, if you want to give a talk or have a booth or whatever, talk with us. So that's it, so thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.